There's an 18th century German stigmatic mystic you'll hear me talk a lot about. Her name is Anne Catherine Emmerich, and she's famous for having actual visions from the life of Jesus. If you've seen the movie The Passion, then you've seen some of her visions. It's really pretty incredible stuff. Now, whether you believe in any of that or not is not the point. The point is, if you read her work, you see pretty quickly the one thing Jesus taught the most, everywhere he went, are what we call the beatitudes. Or as I like to call them, our attitudes to be. Now, I'm sure we've all heard some version of the quote, that by changing the inner attitudes of our mind, we can change the outer aspects of our lives. Or in other words, change your thoughts, change your life. Now, Jesus, the author of all our psychology, was probably aware of that, which is what makes these so important, and which is why I believe he probably did teach these everywhere he went. So when Jesus tells us how to change our attitudes, we should probably listen. Now, just 3 things to keep in mind when you think beatitudes. First, these very well could be the core teachings of Jesus. So think of them kind of like the 10 Commandments of the New Testament. Second, we read these as kind of like, blessed are those who blah. But that's not the way they were spoken. They're meant to be heard like a cry of joy or celebration. So picture Jesus saying, happy are those who blank. So the Beatitudes are a way to happiness. And finally, and this is the reason why I really wanted to do this video, in revealing to us how our inner attitude or disposition or character should be, Jesus is simply revealing his own inner attitude or character or disposition, which, oh, by the way, happens to be the same inner attitude and disposition of God. So if you really want to know the type of guy Jesus is on the inside, and how we can be a little bit more like him, meditate on the Beatitudes. Blessed are the poor in spirit, or happy are the poor in spirit. Now, what the heck does that even mean? Well, I look at it this way. What does it mean to be poor in something? Say poor in general or poor at golf. It means we're lacking in something that we need or want. So let's say I really, really love golf, but I really, really stink at it. And I have the opportunity for private lessons with Tiger Woods. What would be the better attitude or inner disposition for me to have? Well, I'm awesome at golf. I can crush the ball. What do I need him for? Or in other words, rich in golf? Or I really stink at golf. I need all the help I can get. Please teach me everything. Or in other words, poor in golf. Which one do you think Tiger Woods is going to help more? Okay, bear with me here. Now imagine, if you can, an infinite intelligence of pure truth and love. And this intelligence creates within himself all matter, time, and space, and holds it all into existence. And within this existence, he molds together a universe. And at a certain time, in a certain place, inside that vast universe, he takes a little bit of that existence and your soul and creates you. Now imagine coming face to face in front of this God. What is it that we really bring to the table here, other than our poorness of spirit? I am nothing. I have nothing. I know nothing. Poorness of spirit is coming to realize that my dependence doesn't rely on anything in this world, but only on him. True story here. After my mom died of a horrible, horrible cancer, I flipped open a Bible, and the first line I read was, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted." And let me tell you, it gave me a lot of comfort. And I was about as far away from God as you could be at that point. Now, I learned much later that Jesus wasn't really talking about that kind of mourning there, but it is related. So look at it this way. Think of, God forbid, if you've lost someone very close to you. And when we're mourning that person, it's much more than just sorrow or sadness. It's a deep grieving. Why? Because we love that person so much. Now ask yourself, do I feel this same way, even to some degree, over my own sin? Do I feel the same way when I see all the horrible things that happen out there? The suffering, the waste, the sin. Now here's the important part. When we're mourning something, we're coming at it from a place of love, not judgment or holier than thou or I know better. That would be coming at it from a place of pride. Because if we really believe what we believe, then we know what's the cause of 99.9% of all the suffering and pain. And we know there are things that are much, much worse than any physical death. I don't think Jesus was that concerned with our physical death, but he's gravely concerned with our spiritual one. And again, not out of any judgment, but out of love. He doesn't want to lose a single soul. Imagine Jesus in the garden before his passion, and the enemy showing him all the sin and horrible things of every generation that is, was, and will be. Imagine his grief, his mourning was so strong that he cried blood from his pores. So Jesus is showing us the proper inner attitude to have towards all the sin and suffering and evil out there in the world and inside of us. Not of pride or anger or cynicism, but of mourning, which comes from love. And to those he offers all the consolation of the universe. Blessed are the meek, or happy are the meek. Now, this is one of the ones I think that gets misunderstood the most, and it's also one of the ones that I gotta work on the most. Now, meekness is not about weakness or being a doormat. Quite the contrary. Meekness means gentle as a feather, but strong as iron. Meekness is about how well we endure or handle an offense. I look at it this way. Imagine a sensitivity meter deep down inside of you. Now imagine some offense, an annoyance, some suffering, something that just really bothers you. Where does our meter go? Does it fly off the hook this way into anger and rage and vengeance? Or maybe it goes this way and we complain and act like a baby and blame the entire universe. Or do we stay in the middle and bear it calmly, patiently, and gently? I'll let you guess where meekness is. The meek neither provoke nor are provoked. The meek would rather endure an offense than commit an offense. When offended, the meek don't do any evil or even think about doing any evil. Gentle as a feather, yet strong as iron. Just look at Christ. Humiliated, accused, beaten. How did he act in those times? Do not tell me that's weakness. Let the weak fight and complain over every stupid little thing, but let the meek endure evil and respond to it with good. So the next time we're offended, or have to bear some suffering, which will probably be in the next 0.3 milliseconds, just think about that meter, and let's be gentle with one another and ourselves. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness or justice, for they will be filled. Okay, the first thing to point out here is the way he uses the word hunger and thirst here is not the same way we use the word hunger and thirst. Imagine being shipwrecked in the middle of the ocean for weeks. That's the type of hunger and thirst he's talking about here. So do I hunger and thirst in this way for justice and righteousness. Now, what does that mean? Well, I don't really like the word righteousness because, unfortunately, today it comes across as self-righteous or holier than thou. So I look at it this way. Do I hunger and thirst in this way to always do the next right thing? Whatever that may be, whatever the circumstances, no matter what everybody else is going to think, and no matter what it might cost me. Now, the tricky part is, how do I know what the next right thing is? Well, Jesus said, I'm the bread of life. I am the living waters. Whoever comes to me will never hunger. Whoever believes in me will never thirst. I am the way, the truth, and the life. So do I really hunger and thirst to always do the next right thing? Not according to what I think or what the world thinks, but to what He thinks. Blessed or happy are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Or, happy are the compassionate, for they will be shown compassion. A thought that really haunts me is, imagine if God shows me the same amount of mercy and compassion that I've shown everybody else in my life. That kind of scares me. If you want mercy, then show mercy. If you want compassion, then show compassion. To me, I think a number one sign of God in someone is when they show mercy. Because that didn't come from us. We didn't invent that. I'll never forget the story of a mother whom I knew, whose son was brutally stabbed to death by a man whom he helped get off the streets. And at the funeral, standing room only, the mother got up there and pleaded with everyone, very sincerely, to forgive this man who murdered her son. Now that is divine, and that's how God forgives us. We're all the murderer. Jesus said it, be merciful as your heavenly Father is merciful. That's a tall order, because that means it's not just with the people we like, but it's with the people we despise. We put so much emphasis in judging everybody, picking out their flaws. But how much do we put into just being merciful? Or in other words, being patient, understanding, and forgiving? We're not here to judge. That's God's job. But it is our job to be merciful and compassionate. And we're all going to have to face the job review on that one. So think of that person right now I need to go a little easier on, or forgive. And just blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Who doesn't want to see God? What greater thing is there to see than God? If I have an intuitive vision of God, am I going to care about searching for anything else in this world? Emmerich said over and over, the human being's true organ of sight is not the eyes, it's the heart. And she wasn't being figurative here. If we want to have a true vision of God, and not even to mention ourselves and each other, the door is not out there somewhere. It's inside every single one of us. So imagine our heart like a doorway or a gateway. What's clogging up that doorway right now? All my stupid distractions, my desires, my lusts, all my attachments, my unforgiveness, my stubbornness, my pride, my ego, my envy, my wounds, my guilt, my greed, my negativity, my judgments, my ignorance, my sin. I could go on here, but I'll spare us. Now juxtapose that heart with the heart of Christ. Now this is what we're going for here. And you may say, oh, well, that's impossible. Well, not with Him it isn't. All we really have to do is just keep inviting Him in and planting Him right in the center. And all this other stuff will just crumble away. And only then can we really truly see and love ourselves, each other, and God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they are the sons and daughters of God. Hard question here. Are you a peacemaker or are you quarrelsome? Do I bring together or tear apart? The word diabolos, from which we get the word diabolical, actually means to tear apart. Christ's entire mission was to put it back together, to make whole again. So who am I a son or daughter of? We all want peace in the world, but as Fulton Sheen used to say, if you want peace, you don't change policies or laws. You gotta change hearts. It's an inside-out job, not the other way around. Every single one of us has that daily battle going on inside us, that fights to keep what is better in us from being overcome by what is worse. This is where peace is had. That better part of us has to be in control of that worst part of us. I'm sure you've all heard that story that we all have a good wolf and a bad wolf fighting inside us, and the one who wins is the one we feed. Feed the good wolf, because this is where God is found. This is where we cultivate peace. And remember, it's a gift. It's something He gives us. He said, "Peace I leave you. My peace I give you, and my peace is not of this world." But it has to be guarded and nurtured. So look back over the path of your life and ask yourself, do I bring peace into my world? Or diabolos? And finally, blessed are those who are persecuted for my sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. I never forgot I knew this guy once who said, yeah, it's not an accident Jesus put that one last, because if you do the first 7, you will be persecuted. And he's right. Truth wears the crown of thorns. These are also countercultural, that there's going to be tension. It's going to cost us something. And everyone's going to look at us like we have 80 heads. Now I get my fair share of what I call my love comments. And I wish I could just sit here and say they don't bother me. But I'm only human. Of course they bother me. But every time they do, I just hear his voice saying, well, remember they hated me first. And then they don't bother me anymore. Because yes, we all want to share in the glory and the gifts and all the stuff that feels good. But then we just leave him there, all alone, to carry the cross by himself. That's where the real glory is. So we're being asked here to weigh earthly shame versus heavenly glory. So ask yourself, am I more afraid of offending a bunch of people I don't know? Or offending God? Am I more afraid of how the people around me are going to judge me? Or how God is going to judge me? When we seek the praise of a bunch of randoms, we're going to be very saddened when we don't get it. When we seek only our own glory, we're going to be terrified of disapproval. But when we seek only the glory of God, we fear nothing. And then we are truly blessed. Now I try to remind myself of these things every single day, and I try to apply them to every situation. How should my attitude be in this situation right now? And the first thing I realize is they're really all one. Each one supports and informs and reinforces the other one. And the second thing I realize is it's hard. And I fail every single day. And it's a lot easier to just ignore these and take that broad path. But we keep going because he said those who love me follow my word. And in this beautiful and very sacred gift of the beatitudes, Jesus is showing us, telling us, this is how to be more like me. This is my inner attitude. Imagine if we all really live these. Thank you all for getting through another video. This was a long one, but as I said, this one was very special to me. As always, I just want to thank everybody for your support. I honestly, I know I say this all the time, but it just means so much. And if you want to support this small ministry, there's links below. And if you're looking for a little community, aren't we all? Check out our Discord. Love you all. God bless.